morning. This is the Ja Renee, and this is the Ja Renee Healing. I've got a lot to say, so I'm just going to cut to the chase. As discussed before on the previous video, we are going to kind of have that beginning talk about things to do with the Bible. Starting in Genesis, what our hope is that gaining a better understanding is actually going to be helpful in us becoming a better person. So just to go ahead and get started, here's Palo Santo. And the reason why I'm doing this is just simply to cleanse the area, to cleanse the space of any negative or unwanted energies. Okay. So part of the last video, I spoke about having a connection with the Nag Hammadi Gnostic Gospels, and where I get my information, which is something you can all go and see. It's at gnosis.org, which is spelled GNOSIS.org. And when I get there, I click on the alphabet. Let me make sure. I click on where it says alphabetic index, and once you're on alphabetic index, you're within the Nag Hammadi library. So just make sure, in case you do have to click it, you can then go and read the text. But the one that I wanted to start with is called The Apocalypse of Adam. And of course, I'm not starting from the absolute beginning. There might be some things that we skip or jump around, but we're just going to kind of take it day by day, minute by minute with this. But we're starting here. So I'm gonna read just the first part of the Apocalypse of Adam, so you can have an understanding of what it says at this moment. The beginning says, oh, and I'm sorry, but because these were texts that were found and had to be translated for an understanding. There's times where there's spaces missing, and so just bear with us. Bear with me. The revelation that Adam taught his son Seth in the 700th year, saying, "Listen to my words, my son Seth. When God created me out of the earth, along with your mother Eve, I went about with her in a glory that she saw in the eternal realm from which she came. She taught me knowledge of the eternal God, and we resembled the great eternal angels, for we are higher than the God who created us, and the powers with him whom we did not know." So that's the beginning of the apocalypse of Adam. And I know when you heard this, those of you who are familiar with the Bible know that when you hear Adam, you hear Seth, you know kind of who it is and what they're speaking about. But let me bring a different perspective, kind of to what we just heard. So the first thing that he told Seth was that when God created me out of the earth along with your mother Eve. So this ties into and I'll get it if I need it, but this ties into the story of the Garden of Eden and Adam and Eve. And I apologize. I guess oh, there it is. Okay. But it's that story. And we already know the whole idea of, well, the part of the story where it's like, and then God fashioned man, he made man, from the dirt. And then he turned around and later on went in and grabbed a rib out of man and used that rib to make Eve. Like, that's kind of the story that we've been told in regards to it. What also happened in that garden was that Eve was said to have partaken of a tree that God said not to eat of. And I'm sorry if you were able to hear that. That's my glucose monitor. But she partook of, a fruit, so to speak, of a tree that God told her not to eat. That's the story that we know. However, when we kind of see this interpretation and kind of seeing how it links to the same story, especially when he says, I went about with her in a glory that she saw in the eternal realm from which she came. She taught me the knowledge of the eternal God. And the reason why I tie this into the garden is because I don't believe that the fruit that they speak of is an actual piece of fruit as if we know it. That's number one. And the fruit is something significant of something that's valuable, And what I believe, and I'll explain why once I explain, but what I believe is that we've got that story wrong. And according to what we're seeing here in the Gnostic Gospels, Eve didn't do anything wrong. I guess it depends on whose version of the story that it is that you're listening to. But the fruit that she partook of was learning about the knowledge of the eternal God in the eternal realms. So, with that said, if you acknowledge an eternal God, but you also acknowledge the God who created us from the earth, to me it sounds like two separate gods. That in itself is another conversation. But or another Gnostic gospel rather. But let's just continue on. So for one, we know that Eve, just based on this, Eve was not wrong. Adam was not wrong for listening to Eve, for and partaking in it. And the reason why I feel this is significant is because I feel a lot of hatred and just kind of side eye towards women comes from that belief. The belief that Eve actually gave her husband something, that was wrong, that she should not have, and it caused them to be in a bad way. And so I think that's significant because it's, for one, of the mistreatment of women and how we're side-eyed. but also too because man and woman were together, right? And I'll explain what I mean in just a moment. But the woman has insight that she's able to provide the man in the same way that the man has a strength and a protection that he's able to provide the woman. So there's certain characteristics that each of us have. But if you believe that, if you have like an embedded belief that the woman is mischievous, she can't be trusted, like she couldn't get it right, you're not going to listen to her, and she's actually that help that you might need in that particular space and time and moment. Also, so we no, I think we'll get there. So after he said, and we resemble the great eternal angels. And when he mentioned that, this is after they learned the knowledge of the eternal God. Then, and only then, did they resemble the great eternal angels. And that is something that's very important because it shows you the power of knowledge, of you knowing something. Don't take that for granted, especially knowing the right things, especially knowing, in their case, the knowledge of the eternal God, which is everything, So they resembled great angels just for simply knowing. And after that, it's mentioned that, for we were higher than the God who created us and the powers with him, whom we didn't know. Now, there is another gospel that I like to go into, and maybe I'll probably do that one next. That kind of just explains what is meant when it kind of relates to two separate gods. Obviously, one can understand when one says eternal, because clearly that just simply means that you're above all beings. You're absolute. It's you. But what is this lesser God? And what really does that entail? What does that mean? So that'll be for the next video. But then it moves on and it says, God, the ruler of the realms and the powers, divided us in wrath, and then we became two beings. So remember, we mentioned two different gods. So they pointed out the rule, they make distinctions of who they're speaking about for clarification. And when it mentioned as the ruler of the realms and the powers, they divided us in wrath and we became two beings. So those that ruled the realm in which Adam and Eve were dwelling at the time as man and woman almost, but it's he he divided them. That particular ruler of that realm, with the powers and the governances of that place that they were existing. That will be relevant kind of down the road, but I appreciate you following. So when they said, then they divided us in wrath and we became two beings. The first thing is divided us in wrath. That means that I obviously did something to upset you. And what was it that was done that in that moment, honestly, that would be upsetting? Now, of course, we know that the God of that realm was upset because what he said was, Hey, they partook of the fruit, and just went on about it, about how he didn't want it, and how they were wrong in regards to it. What we heard was that they were learning the knowledge of the eternal God. So it sounds to me in this moment that lesser God knew that he wasn't God. And he was upset because they knew it too. And so when you no longer have, so the reason why I work to want to break illusions is because knowledge is power. In the same way that in that moment before they learned of the realm of the eternal God, Adam and Eve were confused. They didn't know. They only knew of what they knew. But however, once they got to know um, what the truth was, the lies that they were told no longer made sense, no longer mattered, because they knew the truth. It erases it all. And that who tried to keep you bound can no longer manipulate you. Because this is quite a bit, I will just go ahead and kind of get a bit more of this in, and then kind of wrap it up for. Actually, I'll do a part 2, and then we'll move into the other video for this. But he divided them, and divided them into two beings. So to say that he divided them into two beings, or to divide them, period, means that they were one, in one body. Because even from the Bible perspective, they talk about him going in and grabbing a rib and whatever. As we know from just the whole idea of what we were thought about in terms of the fruit, that what they were talking about in terms of the rib probably wasn't a rib either. Like that's something that we can probably come to. But what was it? What was snatched out? What was being divided? What part of woman was she to man at the time that they were one? Which is what brought me back to Eve's position and what she does. Eve was the one that brought Adam to the realm of the eternal knowledge. So what I'm doing is I'm giving flowers to somebody who has, since the beginning of time, has had a bad rap as if they did something wrong, and all they've done was sit around and try to learn about the divine and try to bring her husband along for the ride, because that's what a wife does. That's what a woman does in the man and woman dynamic. We are who we are to each other, but you know what? When we were one, we were our own. We were a protector. We were intuitive. We were all these things that we are individually at this point as man and woman. But he divided them, and I really think that that's important, because that's how the idea. Not the idea. And I say that because everything that was created off of something that they saw in the invisible. Because the God in the realm, the ruler of those realms, they don't have any power to simply just create on their own. If they aren't the ultimate being, they can only replicate. And that's what they did. But again, I digress. That's another story. And it says, "And the glory in our hearts left us, me and your mother Eve, along with the first knowledge that breathed into us. and the glory fled from us and entered another great realm. Your mother, Eve, and I didn't come from this realm, but knowledge entered into the seed of the great eternal beings. For this reason, I myself have called you by the name of that person who is the seed of the great generation or its predecessor. After those days, the eternal knowledge of the God of truth withdrew from me and your mother Eve. We learned about the inanimate as we did about human beings. We recognized the God who created us. We were not stranger to his powers, and we served him in fear and slavery. After these events, our heart darkened, and I slept in my heart's darkened thought. So it kind of explains a bit of where we are and where we are, and also kind of existing, and where the realm of the eternal is, and how they felt when they realized where they were. You know, like after kind of learning about the knowledge and gaining all that, reality kind of set back in, and it's like, I'm here. It's a prison, you know, it's prison-esque, you know, like it's not where they wanted to be. And it was a continued, like their hearts darkened, like they weren't okay, right? And this is the beginning of humanity. These are things that we need to pick up so that we can understand why we err, where we err. And when he said that, for this reason I've called you by the name of that person who is the seed of our great generation. If you know the Bible, a person would say, you have Adam. Adam had his son Seth. But as we know, they were mirrored off of the invisible. Because once again, the ruler of the realm could not create something on its own. I'm going to wrap that up. Before, just going to get a couple of the energy cards, and then we'll come back. We'll come back and we'll actually, I'll do a part 2. Okay, and I'm only going to do 2 today. Okay. So this one deals with the heart chakra. And again, these are energy cards, which is why they tie into the different chakras. I created them. Everything that you're hearing, I wrote, I thought about. My fears and anxiety keep me from providing words of wisdom. So what that tells me is that there's somebody that needed to hear this. If you have something good to say, say it. If you have it within you, say it. It doesn't matter what how somebody else is going to take it or how they feel. If it's non-threatening, if it's something that is able to help someone in the end, if, like this says, providing words of wisdom. You know, people need it, you know. And if you're scared of what's gonna happen, you're never gonna be able to be in your, kind of be in your true self, doing what it is that you need to do, to provide those words, to do those things. Like, the fear and anxiety is hindering. And the best way to get over fear is simply just to do it face to face. Anxieties and fears leave you the further you get away from that feeling of fear. And so just wanted to tell somebody else that. Oh, yikes. But this one is tied to the sacral chakra. Sacral chakra, it keeps your emotions, typically, if it's balanced, your emotions are centered. It sparks creativity and it's a sensual energy that kind of comes along with it. Of course, if it's imbalanced, you're going to be experiencing the opposite of those things. This ties into the other video where I, at the end, was like, wear more orange. It seemed like it was trying to sneak in there, like it had something to say. But this says, change is coming. See it before it sees you. Uh, that can really be in many different things. You know what's going on in your life. You know exactly what's happening. And if you need to change something, I think you kind of have an idea that you need to that it's needing to change. See it before it sees you. Meaning, don't let the change that you could have made because you knew that it was something that needed to happen, like you take the steps and you do it. Don't let somebody else or something else take that ability away from you. Already know it, already foresee it. There's no reason to wait. Oh, I'm gonna wait. I'm just gonna see how this plays out. No, stop it. You know, if you need to change something, if you're not doing something right, something not working out for you, try it in a different way. Because at the end of the day, what we're doing here is becoming our best selves. No more laziness, no more lazy energy, no more, just not taking accountability for being a being. I thank you. I thank you once again. This has actually been a long one this time, but it probably will be. And so it just is what it is. I hope, even though it was kind of quick and, probably for a lot of the stuff new information that was heard, but I am glad, or I hope that you're still here. But I hope that you were able to actually gain something from this, that you kind of want to go along this journey and look forward to it. And so, thank you so much. I am the Renee. You have a wonderful day.